I'm Steve Maynard. I'm the Vice President of Exploration for Minaurum Silver. I want to tell you all about what we are planning to do in 2026 on the Alamos project. In January, we published a resource of 55 million ounces of silver equivalent at the project, and we are now working on expanding that resource. We presently have 6 rigs working on the project. So far this year, we've drilled more than 6,000 meters, about 6,500 meters, and we plan to drill a total of 50,000 meters this year. We're concentrating on stepping out at the Europa and Promontorio vein zones, and we are also moving the rig to other veins, including the San Jose vein zone, Quintera, Promontorio Sur, eventually further north to Cotera and Minas Nuevas. And we expect to have an updated mineral resource later this year during the second half of the year. We're also planning to have a PEA sometime in the first half of next year on the project. All right, so we brought some core here to PDAC from the project. It's just to show a little bit about what we have drilled recently, and then a few other places that we've drilled a few years ago that we plan to follow up on later this year. So let's start with hole 163. We had an intercept in Europa Sur that graded, this particular sample graded 1.4 kilos of silver per ton, with a significant amount of lead and zinc as well, for a total equivalent value of 1,984 grams per ton. Now, what is important about this is, in addition to the high grade, is that it represents a step out of about 200 meters from the Europa resource estimate, outside of the boundary of that, and it is hosted by granodiorite. Now, the granodiorite makes up the majority of the basement rocks at the project. Previously, we thought that granodiorite was not a particularly good host. This hole demonstrates that that's not the case. It can, in fact, host significant widths of mineralization. The drilled width of this intercept was more than 12 meters, true width of approximately 10 meters. So that's the significance of that. This is one of the samples from that interval. Another one further down the hole is here. Notice the dense and dark material. These are silver sulfides, silver copper sulfides, dominantly stromayerite, which is a copper silver sulfide. Other holes that we drilled at Europa, hole 135. Now, this is included in the resource estimate. Notice the chrysocolla, the blue-green material there that is developed around the dark copper-silver sulfides. This particular sample ran more than 2 kilos of silver, and with the base metals included, 2.8% copper, a little bit of lead, and 3.7% zinc, you come up with 2.6 kilos per ton silver equivalent. So this is part of the resource that was announced in January. Hole 138 is also part of the resource at Promontorio. Now, at Promontorio, and especially in the southern part of Promontorio, we see another pulse of mineralization that is rich in lead and zinc. This particular sample, and of course, in a video you can't see this, but I can tell you this is very dense material. That's because it's massive sulfide, and that massive sulfide contained more than 15% lead, 35% zinc, 460 grams of silver, and more than a gram of gold. And nearly 1% of copper. So this is very high-grade base metal material with significant quantities of precious metals as well. That's included in the resource from the Promontorio vein zone. All right, so what have we drilled most recently? Hole 179, which is the first hole of the 2026 program. Notice that there's some dark material in the matrix of this breccia, the breccia of which is breccia being broken up rock that's been sealed and healed. And these are pieces of vein material with, or quartz vein material with dark sulfides between the veins, or between the fragments. The assays are pending for this. There will be a news release sometime, I think in the next month, that will have that explained, what that is. Now, as I said, we also want to follow up on the drilling that we've done in previous years, where we hit potentially economic grades of material in some of these other veins. So let's talk about the San Jose vein. And the San Jose we're drilling right now. This sample from hole 92, AL2192A, was drilled in 2021. Notice all this wild veining in here. It's all contorted, it's brecciated. This particular sample was 55 centimeter width, ran 668 grams per ton of silver. And the silver minerals are found in these dark masses in this earthy reddish brown material, as well as along the sides of some of the veining. So that's San Jose. This is one of the San Jose vein can be traced on the surface for 2.5 or 3 kilometers. We have seen mineralization in various spots along it. The geology is a little bit complicated, but that's what we're doing this year, is we're following up on that drilling to see if to make sense of it, and try to build a geological model and a resource on that. Another interval is Minas Nuevas. Here at Minas Nuevas, hole AL2199, it was 3 meters that ran 2.3, more than 2.3 kilos of silver. Again, it's these dark spots in between the fragments of quartz veining. We did not, I was very much surprised. I knew that it was going to run something. I thought maybe a few hundred grams of silver. I was very surprised when it came back as high grade as it did with this. Notice here at Minas Nuevas, unlike the areas further to the south, the grades of the base metals are much lower. So this is an indication of the district-wide zonation, where you can still have rich silver in the case of Minas Nuevas, in the far north of the project, whereas the base metals are richer in the southern part of the project. All right, and then the last one I want to talk about is the Cotera area, and this is a little bit to the south of Minas Nuevas. At Cotera, we have intervals as 30 centimeters that ran 2.3 kilos of silver. It has 6.5% of copper and a little bit of lead and zinc. So a silver equivalent of 3 kilos in that particular sample. We have only 2 or 3 holes at Cotera so far. There's a lot more work to be done there. When we see these kinds of grades, though, we have to follow up and see if we can build a resource on that. And that's part of this year's program. So look for us for regular updates, news of what our drilling results are. We expect to have an updated resource in the second half of this year, and a PEA around a year from now in the first half of 2027.